done something like this in a while. I told Donovan sort of kind of about this before the
Oh
episode,
boy.
but I didn't tell him at all. I didn't tell him it's not anything bad. It's before I start. Like we're doing it on air. All right, we're not picking our favorite terrorists over here. All right. This is something that I think would be pretty interesting, especially considering what we saw in the last week. I'm just going to throw out current NFL free agents, and you're going to hit me with whether you would like to see the Dolphins pursue them, whether you think there's a spot for them on the team, or you'd rather give it a pass. All right, pretty simple. See, it's not that you're like, oh
Okay.
boy, you're like asking questions beforehand. Like I did not want him to do any research. I didn't want him to do any thinking about it. I wanted him to be hit raw with these player names, and then go from there. So, first player that I'm going to mention is a guy who has recently become a free agent, a guy that we saw have a stellar start to his career and has fallen off over the last couple of years. That is Shaquille Leonard, Shaq Leonard, with the Indianapolis Colts, formerly of the Indianapolis Colts. He plays middle linebacker, so not exactly the position we needed when we brought in JPP, but still an area of the field that we could see the Dolphins improve if they would so like to. So, Donovan, if you were the Miami Dolphins, would you be interested in bringing in Shaq Leonard?
It's tough for me to say that. Who would we?
Give me a yes or
But
a
that
no,
is a
and then
player that
give me a yes or a no, and then
is
give your
that
reason.
yes, because he would improve our linebacking core, which we know we struggle sometimes with the middle linebackers. Baker's been pretty good this year, actually. As long same with David Long, and I think it would give Van Ginkel a little bit of a chance to play more outside as well. Uh, but it's just a matter of where we can make that space. Like, who do we cut? Channing Tyndall, like
I'm
Eli
totally
Apple,
fine with that.
probably.
Eli Apple's probably the
Whatever.
next on the chopping block whenever somebody else comes back from
What's up,
IR.
Cat?
What's good,
Happy
homie?
holidays, sir.
What's good? What's good? Welcome, welcome. All right, number two. Number two would be an offensive lineman, somebody who has been on waivers or has been a free agent for I think a couple months now. Has some injury issues. He's cracked 30, but is still a very serviceable player, assuming he will be fully healthy. That is Lyle Collins. Yes or no?
Yes.
That was easy. So you're not so he is still coming back from that ACL and that MCL. He's 30 years old. He's an offensive lineman. He's a bigger boy, so I'm sure that plays a part as to why he's not on a team yet. Does it not concern you at all?
I mean, I'm sure he's also looking for playing time. That I think that's a major reason there as well. But just like Teron Armstead, he was limited in practice today, but re-injured his quad or injured his quad somehow. There's always something injured with that man.
There is.
Kendall Lamb was beat up. We saw Keon Smith go into the game before he went into the game. However, then he was forced into the lineup once Austin Jackson got rightfully ejected for throwing a punch.
Yeah, he did deserve to get
But
ejected.
I'd much rather have Lyle Collins than Keon Smith. Now, Keon Smith played very well for his, 7 snaps that he played, given it was more than that, but I'm just exaggerating.
Uh-huh. I get what you're
Um,
saying.
yeah, but he played well, but I mean, Lyle Collins was a Pro Bowler at one point, and you don't just lose that completely. Like, he was still playing well with the Bengals before he tore his ACL. Now he's a bigger boy, like you said, so it takes a little bit longer for the big boys to come back from ligament injuries, having to build up all that muscle around the knees again. But yeah, I definitely someone I would love to have on this team, especially since we're without Isaiah Wynn for the foreseeable future. We could talk about that a little bit later, but he could also play inside.
Okay. So 2 yeses so far. This one, I think I know where it's going. And by that, probably a no. This guy, at one point, either was the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, or signed the biggest wide receiver contract in NFL history, or very close to it if it was not number one. He showed very, very high flash with his first team, and then showed absolutely nothing with the team he signed the big contract with. That being Kenny Golladay. He is an NFL free agent currently. Would you bring in Kenny Golladay?
You're actually gonna be surprised by my answer.
Yes.
Yes. With Eric Ezukama possibly being out for the rest of the season with that neck injury, with he had tweets yesterday, and I was kind of being like, oh, that I think that means that he's going to be activated today. And then it turns out it was Chris Brooks. And I'm like, well, that means either Isaiah Wynn is out for the entire season, or Eric Ezukanma is out for the entire season, or both of them are out for the entire season. I want a bigger wide receiver with good hands. And like, yeah, he struggled on the Giants, but he showed flashes on the Lions, and and by showed flashes, I mean he was literally mini Megatron. You know me, I've been begging for a big receiver. Now we have Chase Claypool, but I want someone that, like, in the thick of it, if I need to throw up a jump ball, I want someone I can throw that up to.
For the record, I would not. We already have 2 memed wide receivers. We don't need a third. We don't. At one point, I would love to see Robbie Anderson, Chase Claypool, and Kenny Galladay on the field at the same time, but we already have 2 of the most memed wide receivers in the NFL. I'm good on a third. I understand your practical purpose, but we saw him.
I'd rather have him than Robbie. I'd rather have him than Robbie.
But we just saw the least amount of effort from a football player in NFL history from Kenny Galladay last year. That's not something that this Dolphin team needs on the roster. So I have a few former members of the team that I'd like to get into actually after this. But I have one more, and since I haven't got a no from you yet, I think this is gonna be the first no. I'm not even gonna lead it into anything. Do you want Chandler Jones as a Miami Dolphin?
No. Brother has CTE.
Let's just say we've seen a lot of him recently.
He has.
We got to see a lot of him.
We got to see a lot of him recently, as well as he has worse CTE than
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown.
Okay.
Much worse.
So a few former Dolphins here. I'm not gonna go with the obvious one first, but somebody who has some Super Bowl experience. It was actually in the Super Bowl last year, won the Super Bowl a few years ago with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That is the Ndamukong Suh. We've seen him last year sign mid-season with the Philadelphia Eagles, helped them get to the Super Bowl. Didn't play a pivotal role, but still helped.
Yes, I than so yes.
Okay, fair enough. I have 2 more here that will wrap this up with, both being former Dolphins. The second one being a position we just signed at, but somebody that we saw play a big role earlier in the season last year. We just brought in JPP, so with that considered, would you still be interested in bringing in Melvin Ingram?
Nah, I'd rather have JPP.
That's valid. I don't think there's room for both.
I like JPP. I told you, as far as pass rushers go, and I actually, it was funny because I told you, like, what, Sunday, as soon as JPP was elevated, I'm like, bro, JPP's on the practice squad for the Saints. We could sign him to active roster.
Bam.
I just give me my medal or something.
It happened. No,
so
hey, you called it. It happened.
Thank you.
I'm very glad that it happened.
Thank you.
I'd be surprised to see him play this week.
Here's the top of my list.
I'd be surprised to see him play this week. I mean, but also he's an edge rusher. Like, tackle the quarterback. You did your job. And
yeah,
to wrap things out, I think this is going to be a unanimous yes from everybody watching along. And if you comment along, I see Robert says no too slow. Just who was that about? If you're talking about anybody in particular, but yes, he just signified there. According to NFLTradeRumors.com, the number 3 free agents in general left available. A man who spent the better part of his career here before being shipped away to die to the Cleveland Browns by Adam Gase. That being Mr. Jarvis Landry.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it hasn't happened yet, dude. What are we doing, guys?
Honestly, what are the Chiefs doing and not bringing him in?
He was not good, dude. And he's got a lot of injury issues last few years.
He was good last year when he was playing.
He wasn't playing, when he did, wasn't that great.
Melvin Ingram.
Yeah, that's valid.
I think he's really fat. Right?
He's really old.
He looked like a defensive lineman playing edge last year, honestly.
So last year, Jarvis Landry
out there.
Jarvis Landry in 9 games played only had 272 yards. That's not great.
Yeah, but look at the beginning of this. Look at the beginning of the season before the injury started.
Give me a second to pull that up. because, like I said, that wasn't great.
Uh,
In 2022, he had an incredible week 1, 7 catches, 114 yards, and for the rest of the season, never got over 38 yards in a single game in the rest of the 8 games he played. So he had that big moment. He then missed from week 5 to week 9, and then missed from week 15 to 17. So he's a little up there in age, 30 years old. But come on. I mean, he's a Dolphins legend. I would love for him to come back, win a Super Bowl, and then retire his number.
Bro.
Who's wearing 14
the leadership
right now?
that he had.
Is it Mike
14.
White?
It is Mike White.
All right. Mike, you're wearing 93 now. All right? We'll find a number for you. I don't care. 69. Go ahead and take it, Mr. White. Mr. White. Jarvis
I think
Landry.
someone's wearing 93.
There it is. He had a sack. That's actually what I kind of thought of it from, I think. Jarvis Landry, 100%. Let us know down in the comments any of those guys that we just mentioned. Would you like to see the Dolphins bring them in? Yes or no? Give us your reason. Just made a video out of that. Shout out to me.
Honestly, when you're talking about an edge rusher that was a former Dolphin, I thought you were going to talk about Robert Quinn.
I thought about bringing him up, but I think I brought up like 8 guys. I only intended to bring up 5, and I kind of just kept going. So I'm like, all right, I'm only going to bring up one of the former Dolphins. So if anybody, I'm going to bring up the guy who was Mr. No Gloves himself from the team last year. I would 100% bring up Jarvis Landry. Like, just the romanticism from that. If we were to bring him back, what record did he have his rookie year, or what records in general?
It was receptions, and then he had that until who broke it? Someone else broke it,
and then Waddle break?
And then the receptions record also.
Well, Waddle broke Anquan Bolden's record.
So Jarvis broke the Dolphins rookie record.
Okay, that's what it was. Let me just look up what his stats were with his time as a Dolphin, because obviously he had his best years with us. So that first season when he broke the Dolphins rookie receiving numbers, he was well short of what Waddle ended up with. 84 catches, 758 yards, and then those next 2 years, as well as the 2019 season, were his best 3 years as a pro. 1,150 yards in 15, 1,136 in 16, 112 catches in 2017, which is in bold, so I'm not sure if that was a record. That's probably the Dolphins, or at the time, I don't know if it got broke, but in 2017 probably had the record for the most catches in a season in Dolphins history with 112 catches. I'm not looking this up, but I'm assuming that's a record.
It makes sense.
It makes sense. That's a very high number. Somehow, he had less than 1,000 yards with 112 receptions. That's just how bad that Dolphins team was. And then in 2019, 1,174 with his second year in Cleveland, and then hasn't eclipsed 1,000. But again, it just makes so much sense. We don't really have a clear-cut wide receiver 3. There's Cedric, there's Braxton Berrios, there's Craycraft, there's Robbie, there's Claypool. Like, there's just a bunch of dudes that are just in there in that circle. And Jarvis, let's be real, would also just become one of those dudes. He would not come in and cement himself as a wide receiver 3, but like the juice, the love that he had for this team. Even if he's not a starter, he would be the last one out of the tunnel, or the last one before two, one way or another.
100%.
And number 14, Jarvis Landry. Oh, I just got goosebumps.
Dude, I do also love, like, we don't really talk about this too much. When Brian Flores
was here, Landry? Robert, please explain yourself.
Yeah.
No to Landry? Come on.
That's wild.
Please explain yourself. He's not going to be the starter. He's not going to usurp Hill or Waddle in the pecking order. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say, when Brian Flores was here, we didn't do player introductions, and I hated that.
Yeah.
Like,
welcome
it's
to
a
the
fan
field,
thing.
the Miami Dolphins, and then just...
Yeah, it's so stupid. So I love that, like, the energy and like, like, bro, they catered to H-Han when he came back, and then said 2 plays later.
They didn't really cater to him. He was just kind of thrown in the middle. He was
he was towards the end.
He was towards the end, but they already were. That's how it usually is. He already was towards the end usually.
No, it was him. It went Waddle, him, Tyreek, Tua.
Bro, Ramsey's debut.
Dude. Goosebumps.
And that's the only time this year they've done the defense first or they did the defense with the introductions. And I was looking like, it's easier for me to see than you, like who comes out of the tunnel. Like I saw Tua, or I don't know, I saw some offensive starter. I'm like, you know who it was? It was Durham Smythe. It was either Durham Smythe or yeah, I think it was Durham Smythe. And I'm like, oh, we're doing defense. You know what that place freaking erupted.
I knew we were gonna do defense just because it was Ramsey's debut. Like they kind of switch it up a little bit. Like sometimes, like for instance, I remember this Monday night game. The game before that, we introduced defense. So then that game we can introduce offense.
Dude,
like they kind of went back and forth last year.
If the Dolphins bring back,
he said he'd run with Craycraft. Look, I love Craycraft.
I'm not saying
wrong.
cut
We literally
Craycraft.
just use it. I'm saying cut Robbie.
I'm saying cut Robbie.
Yeah. Because like Jarvis Landry, he's very similar to Craycraft. I'll give you that. Cedric had a couple of good games. Cedric has had a couple of good games. Like big catches, not really like big statistical games, but big catches.
Also, like Jarvis isn't coming back to be the guy, but he's coming to be the soul. Like he is that piece that, like, we don't need another wide receiver, but if you can bring somebody in who the fans already love, would fit this offense pretty well, I'd say. Like he could be a better slot receiver than Braxton has been.
And honestly, I think he's someone that you can go to on third and short, because right now we're struggling. We're struggling on third and fourth and short. We're struggling.
You have him line up inside.
That could be a guy.
I can see him and Tua working out very well.
And he's a very good blocker, which is pivotal to play on this.
You see a little less catches from the rest of those guys, but is anybody crying to see Cedric Wilson get more involved? Is anybody crying to see River Craycraft? Like they're decent players. It's nothing about them. I'm not saying that we need this. Wide receiver is probably the position we're most blessed at. Like you have two of the best in the game, and then a bunch of guys to fill in the space.
Don't look back, bro.
I am looking back.
Honestly,
we sucked. We sucked.
And
now we have Jarvis. Now we have a good team, and we can have Jarvis on it.
I'd still rather have Jarvis than Craycraft.